those now into the record for public comment.
Great. I'm going to read them in the order of, well, first of all, welcome everybody again to the board meeting tonight. If you are joining us or watching us on YouTube, I hope everyone is staying safe and staying healthy out there during this time of school closure and the COVID-19 emergency. And so we did get two public comments. I'm going to read them in the order they were received. The first one came with also a visual attachment. I'm reading from my email, so I don't know if Jody's going to be able to show that attachment because it was a large file. It looks like yeah, we're gonna get that good. Thank you, Jody. And so the email starts off, "Thank you, Jody. I will probably not be in Zoom in. Please share this email and the attachment with the board. The revised bullet number 1, the revised soup contract amounts to an increase in compensation while in the process of riffing this in many respects. I cannot see how staff morale cannot be negatively affected by the suggestion. I encourage you to either A, delete it from the agenda and reconsider, or B, adhere to the meeting practice and make it a discussion item to allow appropriate discussion. Bullet point number 2, regarding the Vashon Island property tax rate in the board materials. Thanks to everyone involved for including the historical collections table. This is much more relevant than tax rates. B, please see attached image of the document with notes. Your yellow highlighted commentary suggests a 33% reduction in taxes. 2, calculating the change from collections suggests a 24% increase in taxes. 3, which is the more accurate and meaningful representation of the change? The email concludes, "Thank you for your service, Steve Ellison." I'll go ahead and pull up number 2, the second public comment. This comment is dated April 23rd, 2020. Dear school board members and Superintendent McSheehy, tonight you'll be voting on resolution number 780, which will give Superintendent McSheehy the ability to plan and implement a reduction in staffing of up to 3.5 teachers. I believe that Superintendent McSheehy has also said that he is proposing to cut 60 hours to our support staff who work directly with students, although that is not listed specifically in this resolution. Throughout this process, Superintendent McSheehy is required to follow the process laid out in our collective bargaining agreements, district policy, and regulations. Our hope is that the process is followed cleanly, creating as little misinformation and angst as possible. VEA and VESP will be working closely with Superintendent McSheehy on this. That being said, we do not want you to see this work we are doing as a signal we are in agreement with this decision. We have 2 significant concerns at this point. One is for the impact on our staff who will potentially receive a layoff notice on May 15th. And the other is for our students and the health of our district. Reducing our staff by 3.5 teachers and 60 hours of support people means larger class sizes and less individualized support for students in need, often our most vulnerable students in this unprecedented time. At your next board meeting, you will see a list of the names of educators who will be losing their jobs. It is part of our collective bargaining agreement that these cuts cannot be made generically. Our hope is that you will not think of it as 3.5 FTE, but rather you will see the people who are impacted by this. You will also see the programs that we are losing. We do have staff who are retiring or resigning, and as has been a pattern in past years, we believe that a 3.5 FTE reduction can be covered through attrition. Regardless, any cuts will mean that there are less resources for our students when they will be most vulnerable from the effects of this pandemic. We know we'll be facing extreme equity issues unlike any our district has ever experienced. You will have in front of you again and again and again the financial health of the district and the bottom line of the finances. Teachers are the last line of defense for students, as are our support people who stand right next to us in this. As you consider cuts for next year, we ask you to remember, as one of you said in your last board meeting, that a budget is a statement of our priorities. Right now, all the cuts being proposed are literally in the classroom, having the most direct impact to our students. It does not take any imagination to think about why that is concerning to us, the teachers and support staff of the Vashon Island School District. The Vashon School Board and community have continued time and again to prioritize budget as close to students in the classroom as possible because we know that educators reach and teach our students, not curriculum. Sincerely, Lisa Miller, Glenda, and Sarah Hamill, Vice President and Co-Presidents of the Vashon Education Association, Colby Gateman, Kathy Hall, and Elizabeth Parrish, President, Treasurer, and Secretary of the Vashon Educational Support Personnel. We appreciate you sending in the comments, and just to let you know, any comments that are received after this evening's meeting will also be passed on to the board.
Slade, it looks like the meeting is not being live streamed. Can someone confirm it?
I don't know.
Oh, I hear from downstairs that yes, it is being live streamed.
Great.
And then I hear the laughter. Okay.
You have your own super tech support there. Nice.
I guess so. Yeah. All right. Just checking.
Yep. Good to check in on that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep. Thanks, Amy. And
All
well,
right. And I think that's the only public comment we received, correct?
right, those were the two public comments we received.
So we will then move on to the superintendent report, and Slade will present.
Great. Well, we are in our second week of continuous learning, and my superintendent report, I'm going to first, once again, kind of open up with a land acknowledgement. I would like to recognize and acknowledge the indigenous people of this land, the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. And today we pay respect to the Puyallup Tribe of Indians and to their elders past, present, and emerging. So I just want to share with you also, if you haven't already, just a quick communications update. We launched our Facebook page toward the end of last week, and we already have 185 followers of that page, and we've been already seeing some really cool content being posted and some great feedback. But Susan Reamer has started a Throwback Thursday, and I'm not sure if anybody, I'm positive people here probably remember Todd Pearson, who set the 100-yard dash record of 9.9 seconds back in 1971.
Nice.
Yep. And apparently his record still stands. And apparently she was able to reach out to him, and he was recalling, and this is on Facebook, and it's a little bit of trivia, that when he was running, there was only 15 boys but no girls. But last spring we had 62 students turn out with the new field and track, and more, even more this year until we were closed down. But there's some great pictures there. So I continue to ask our community to follow us. We're going to be celebrating seniors, spotlighting staff, and doing these kind of Throwback Thursdays, and hopefully people will feel more connected to our online community as we're kind of separated from each other during these irregular times.
And what's the name of that page?
Vashon Island School District on Facebook.
Todd Pearson was a real advocate for helping pass the bond and communicating the value of the track program and the field.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate his support, his lifetime support.
That's great. I want to see if I can find one of those singlets, because it's kind of the classic tank top with a real kind of calligraphy V in the middle. It looks so cool. But I appreciate Susan getting this page launched. She's been working closely with the principals and counselors and librarians. One of the other posts, Julie Jaffe has kind of 4 top books to recommend. So it's just another way that we're building community here.
Great.
Yeah. One of our next, just kind of COVID-19 update. I imagine this is going to be the part of the superintendent's report for quite some time. I encourage the board to ask any questions during this time if they have them. One of the first things that we know, we're streaming this streaming this meeting, and Governor Inslee's proclamation limiting some of the OPMA requirements is set to end this evening at 12 o'clock midnight. We don't know if he's going to continue that, so this could be our last meeting, or it could be, obviously he could extend it. I'm thinking that he's going to be extending it probably until the end of the school year, which will be June 19th. But I just want to let the board know that we're kind of on a wait and see in terms of continuing on with these video conferences. If you also saw some emails and communication from myself and from principals, I want to let you know that grading has been kind of the next hurdle or discussion that the high school and region has been facing over the last couple of weeks with superintendents. And we saw Superintendent Rakedahl from OSPI video last week indicating that some guidance was going to come, and he reminded us that he did not have authority to make any decisions for school districts, that grading, is in our policy, it's left up to local authority. And then we received on Tuesday evening, we received guidance that will move into rulemaking with a few key elements I'm just going to kind of point out to the board. I really appreciate Rakedahl's process in terms of gathering educators from around the state to give feedback on what would be the right direction to go in terms of grading. It was a very complex issue because of the implications for WIA, NCAA, how our school is going to be. In the past, any type of pass grade mark was seen as was equivalent to the lowest grade mark that could be given in a district that would be a passing grade mark. And so there were many questions to unravel and untangle. And alongside that work, Mr. Rock and the PLCs and all the teaching staff and counselors at the high school had been in kind of continuous meeting and communication around what kind of grading system they were wishing to move towards. So Rakedahl's announcement on Tuesday night was not in alignment with the direction that we were headed, but the good news is that we can work within it. And right now, PSESD is supporting all districts by providing all districts information on how districts are working through this. So we're heavily connected with most districts in the state. What's going to happen now, that the primary premise for this is do no harm. And I appreciate again Rakedahl's values behind the new grading system, and essentially that right now any student's grade is going to be one of a traditional grade marks, A, B, C, or D, and with the inclusion of an incomplete grade. Districts will get to choose which of those grade marks they will implement. So there's some flexibility within that system. This is applying to credit-bearing courses only, and which means that non-credit-bearing courses that are offered at the middle school or at the elementary school, it's up to local authority to determine what's going to happen with those. So at this time, I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of an update. Danny has met with PLCs. We have tried to come to terms and come to some problem solving around some of the challenges around incompletes and what that might look like for students moving forward. There's still a lot of details to work through, a lot of conversation, but I can share with you that the high school is moving towards something A through, was it A through C or A through D? I was reading so many of the other districts. I believe we're looking at something that's A through D with an incomplete. And there's some caveats around some of how those grade marks are going to be given and what kind of communication will be surrounding those. We know that that 6-8 middle school is going to do a more broadly based pass or no credit at the middle school for all the courses that are non-credit bearing. And K-5, they're going to continue with the kind of report card that they've always gone with, but they're not going to be able to address many of the standards that might normally be addressed in a normal semester. And they may assign some other type of grade mark like an NA that would indicate to parents that particular standard was not assessed. There is some wonderings or trying to figure out what to do with courses that were already pass fail or pass no credit. Some IEPs have that language written into them. And we may have some pre-existing courses as well, like homeroom or smart period, or TAs who may also receive some type of pass or no credit grade mark. So we still have to work through some of that. And I guess one of the biggest questions is, if students do get an incomplete, are they going to be making that up over the summer? Are they going to, Chris Rakedahl did offer some suggestions on how to approach that, but we really have to see what that's going to look like in our own kind of environment. The grading was a little bit of a surprise for us. We were getting ready to make announcements because we had been signaled from PSESD, and Superintendent Rakedahl had explicitly said that he did not have the authority on Friday, but there is some authority over how transcripts are done, or how credits are transcripted, and in the transcripts there are grade marks, and so that is where OSPI is using the authority to then basically prohibit any type of pass, no credit, or fail. But again, I think the good news is that we have a staff that's flexible, that's optimistic, that are great problem solvers, great collaborators, and we know we have the right people in front of this to make the best things happen for kids. I've had probably about 4 or 5 community members reach out to me about just the grading system, trying to get some clarity around it. I'm doing my best mostly to direct them back to Danny Rock, so that they can get a better connection with what's happening, and he has the most up-to-date information on that. But I believe that we're probably going to have some official communication with parents sometime, hopefully by mid next week. There's still some communication and questions that need to be answered before we make a broad kind of announcement in terms of the system and how it's going to impact students. This would be a great time for questions or for you to ask.
It was a little surprising, I have to agree with you, how Reichdahl was like, it's all in the hands of the districts, and then turned around and said, it's not in the hands of the districts, and this is how it's going to go. But I do appreciate, I really did appreciate how many people were involved in the decision. It wasn't just his office, they were all over. And I also appreciated the fact that they're on the transcripts. I mean, this is more for the high school students, how there'll be that sort of official asterisks on the transcript that say this was the spring of COVID.
Absolutely, right.
Which, I mean, having a junior, I'm so aware of that transition into, which makes it all challenging.
And I think there's something just to recognize here, and I don't want to purposely throw a wrench in anything, but I know that some regional superintendents in larger districts expressed some extreme dissatisfaction over the announcement, because they had already made decisions to move in a different direction. And there was lots of questions around the authority issue with OSPI, and apparently there's an RCW around local authority around grading systems. And so I'm hoping that this is kind of, I really appreciated Danny Rock's email to his staff saying, we can make this as big an issue or a small issue. And I'm working right now. Let's take care of kids and make this a smaller issue. Let's put kids first, kind of. And so, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of days, due to other pressures in the state, that we saw an expansion or more flexibility on this rulemaking. But
how does, I mean, but I'm just curious, how does this affect Seattle? I mean, they've already have their interesting system that they've chosen. So are they mandated?
The system that they're putting in, which is everyone gets an A, or if you don't get an A, you'll get an incomplete. that system actually falls within the what's allowed in the rules. Because you can use any combination of A, B, C, or D. And they used the combination of A and then with an addition of I. So,
Hey, Slade, could we pause for a second? I think Jody wants to try to re-kick the live stream on YouTube.
sure.
I just got a text asking to pause for a moment.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Sorry, it'll just give me a minute.
Yeah,
No, that's okay. I forgot to, I was charging, just on a side note, Hank was doing his video piano lesson and using my phone, and FaceTime really takes the power. So sorry, Jody, I left my phone in the room charging. So if you were trying to text me, you're not gonna be able to text me anymore because it's
Okay.
great. The other thing, any other questions around grading right now?
I had a question. Maybe you covered it, but it seemed like the grading advice was it was exclusively focused at the high school level, and that the guidance that we had received previously for grades up through 8, so that remains unchanged, or are they still making some decisions in those?
Right. If I remember right in the guidance, it talked about at that K-8 level, really focusing on engagement and connection. And once again, kind of reiterating, prioritizing the standards that you feel are the most important and work through those. But they left that really open-ended and up to districts to make their own decision. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Lastly, I thought I would do just kind of in terms of COVID-19, I thought I'd do a couple staff spotlights for you. And we continue to see just amazing work done by the staff. The community recognizes it and kind of gives shouts out. They often CC me on emails. And so I just want to kind of share a couple with you, if you bear with me a little bit. The first one is to Rebecca, and it's, I just wanted to say that we are extremely, I'm going to leave out names, but I'm going to, in terms of the public, I just want to say that we are extremely, in all caps, impressed with the work that Alex has been doing and how much effort she's putting into this learning process. This morning at 5 a.m., she sent out a fantastic video she had made walking kids and parents through the plan for the week. And this is Alex Driscoll, 5th grade teacher at elementary school. She continues, she had fantastic ideas for kids. Everyone step outside and yell at the same time, and has held goofy meetings for the kids to have a morale booster, and has worked very hard to make sure parents and kids fully understand this process by touching base independently, holding a parent Q&A, and is now scheduling one-on-one meetings with the kids. Her documents are clear and easy to follow, and very considerate of the fact that not everyone has printers handy. I know you are all working super hard, and all the teachers are very challenged during this time. I want you all to know how appreciative we are and how we really get the message out about Alex's phenomenal work particularly. And then she concludes with saying, "We've got this." So I thought it was a pretty awesome comment. I just wanted to make sure I shared that out loud and publicly. And the next one, if you know Shar Phillips, who does our guide dogs program and works at the high school, I just want to give a shout out to her. It's difficult for some classified staff to figure out what, kind of what's the meaningful, where can I contribute meaningfully during this school closure. But I learned that she's just spent, many days detailing buses 3, 4, and 5. And to quote, they've been cleaned from top to bottom, inside and out, no more moss, no more mold, no more wasp nests. And then tomorrow, she's going to start cleaning up the VHS flower beds, and she's going to be coordinating with grounds and maintenance to make sure, that she's doing what should be done. So
That's so great.
That's
I know
awesome.
those are the kind of folks I'm just so proud of our staff, and it's basically, how can I help? They walk in the door every day saying, "How can I help?" And it's just admirable. I'm very happy to be part of that team always. So give a shout out to Alex Driscoll and Shara Phillips.
Hey.
Yep.
So
And-
folks-
Great, the commitment of staff across the way, because I think that all staff are working ridiculously hard.
Mhm.
We don't see it because we're at home, and so that's great.
Right.
So we're still having some technical difficulties on our streaming.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to pause or,
Well, this is recorded, so they can always watch it later as well.
yes,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's
And
just going to be one of those technical difficulties, but this will be recorded, and so.
and Jody did send out the Zoom link in the public email, so
Mhm.
up to the capacity of the meeting room, people could join and
Yeah.
listen in that way.
Okay, I'm going to put this link on our website so people know that we're having trouble.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jody. I know we work really hard to try to make everything work, but then that's just the world we live in. I'm crossing my fingers that my bandwidth stays good this meeting. In terms of upcoming events, we just have two board meetings, the May 14th and May 28th. But in between that time, there is a budget advisory board meeting, just to let you know that Zabet will be attending on May 5th. And a couple other events, just let you know that VESP and our district negotiation team, VESP leadership and the district negotiation team are meeting for the next 3 Tuesdays in the morning to negotiate some limited items. And so not really, obviously a lot of events happening. I will say that our athletes are receiving some workouts and some communication from coaches, which is really encouraging. But there aren't any events to hold, but I think it's all kind of looking towards the future and what that might look like. And there has been discussion, I'm going to go jump back to COVID, I forgot about this. There has been discussion about how we reopen schools next year. And Rake Dahl has been signaling, at least in the last 2 meetings that I've attended, that we're going to be coming back. But how we come back may look different. We still may be social distancing. So some districts, a few in the last meeting that I attended, have already begun to plan what it might look like if you're trying to do social distancing and providing all students with PPE in order to come back. And that would mean not as many students back at once. And what kind of schedule would that look like? And so we're still kind of waiting. We're still figuring out continuous learning plans, and we want to stay as present as possible without trying to guess too much because things change so much. But I imagine in the next week to 2 weeks, we're going to see some energy around contingency planning for how we come back. Even again, not knowing what kind of guidance or rulemaking or anything that OSPI may be doing. So we have made it very clear as a group of superintendents that we want this sooner than later, and to be very clear and concise. And if you don't know something, tell us you don't know, but try to figure this out as soon as possible. So, okay, I think I'm finished, Reagan.
Okay, great. So that'll lead us to board member remarks. And does anyone want to start off? And I'll jump in at once, sir. How about Zabet?
No, I'll go.
Go ahead.
I want to, on the parent side, seeing stuff come in, I just want to reiterate what you were saying, Slade, about what the teachers are doing. It's just teaching this way is, nobody wants to teach this way. I mean, anybody who's teaching in a public school, that, at our schools, this is not what they signed up for. And I think they're doing a remarkable job. Seeing what Alec is actually doing, I'm really impressed. So thank you for that. Which leads me to my what I want to say about the upcoming negotiations and that really thoughtful letter that the unions gave us. Thank you, Slade, for reading that. And I just wanted to sort of not state the obvious, but say that that any changes that will happen in the budget are not at all a reflection on what we as a board think of our staff and our teachers and all employees of VISD. This is a reflection of a financial situation that we're in, and it's extremely challenging. And I will say, we'll keep saying this over and over again, but this is not a situation that any of us want to be in, especially when the staff is showing how remarkable they are. So hopefully we can get the 3.5, the 3.5 by attrition. That would be ideal, but we'll see. Anyway, so I just want to reiterate that. And thank you, Slade, for dealing with OSPI and grading, and the saga continues. And I think we're really learning the lesson that it doesn't really pay to be the district that goes out ahead and goes out and makes it big. Like, I am like, let's be cautious. Let's take our time. We are all learning there is no rush. There is no rush. So I think that's all I gotta say. Thank you all.
Thank you, Beth.
Spring? Spring, did you have any remarks?
It sounds like she's saying pass to someone, the next person.
All right, how about Bob? And Toby?
I'll just say that, I've been in communication with family and friends from different parts of the country, and it's interesting to hear their experience about what the schools are doing in this time. And it reminds me that what we're doing in our own district is pretty remarkable. And one of the roles the school district has in a community like ours is feeding families, and providing daycare, and the whole story around distributing food on the buses and people going out of their way to contribute and help in any way they can in support of the students and the families is pretty remarkable. We know that it's part of our values and our purpose and why we're here, but to see it in action in comparison with what other districts are able to do is pretty amazing. And it's not because we have different resources. I think it's because we have, the heart and the vision. So that I'm really excited about that.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess the only thing I'll add in addition to big kudos to the staff and the administration and the teachers for making this up as we go and then having to remake it up after they change their mind and then make it up again. So it's frustrating for everyone, and I think you guys are doing an incredible job being thrown into this and having to adapt in some way as we count down to the end of the year. The other thing I wanted to say kind of piggybacks on Toby's remarks there about the other roles the district fulfills within the community besides education. And I just wanted to point to Give Big, which is coming up here on May 5th and 6th. The 501 Commons Foundation is doing Give Big on over a 2-day period this year. Part of that is in recognition, for the challenging financial times we're in. And of course, everyone completely understands that a lot of families are financially pinched right now and not able to contribute, but the families that do have the means, this is a wonderful time to support all of the community services, all of the Vashon nonprofits who are going to be part of Give Big this year. One of which, of course, is the Vashon Schools Foundation. So that when our kids do come back to the buildings eventually, the programs that we value and believe in are still here, financially strong and supported by the community and by the vision of the district and our mission statement. So if you have the means to donate to Give Big this year, think of the Vashon Schools Foundation, think of the other Vashon education-related nonprofits, as well as the community support system.
Good point.
And,
Oops.
go ahead.
Okay, sorry. But there was one thing I wanted to share, which is, do you guys know about the community care team? It's part of Vashon Be Prepared. The community care team, it was something that was developed many, many years ago after 9/11, I think it was. Anyway, in response to the pandemic, the community care team, it's volunteer mental health services, support services for islanders, and we launched a helpline that's like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, and it was launched today. So we're gonna be circulating that information really soon. It's sort of a soft launch today, but I just wanted to make you all aware of that. It's for mental health and spiritual support for anyone on the island, and it's free, and it's to really try to reach all people and get them plugged into appropriate support services. So, Dove's involved, and like BYFS. So it's a good coordinated effort. Just wanting to mention more information coming soon.
Can I jump in, Reagan? That reminds me, Spring, that this Saturday from 10 to 11:30, there's another town hall that Vashon Be Prepared is doing. It'll be with Charlie Kimmert, the Vashon fire chief, some doctors on the island who've helped set up with the testing. Rebecca Gertzel will be there from Youth and Family Services, just trying to get information out to everybody about next steps, all these different services that people are stepping up where, well, anyway, so it'll be a Zoom. I think it's going to be on Vashon Resilience and the Backbone Campaign's Facebook page.
Great.
Yep. 10 to 11:30 Saturday.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add before we move on? In that case, we will go on to continuous learning plan. Dr. Stephanie Spencer is going to present and tell us what we're all going to do for the next few months.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Take it away, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me tonight. So gosh, where to begin? First of all, I just want to give a shout out. Our district has been remarkably nimble, and our everyone has just been really fantastic. I mean, we're all very well suited to this. We're all born problem solvers. It's one of the reasons why we go into education. But it doesn't happen in an instant. We're talking about years of really hard work put in over time that put the systems in place and the partnerships in place that make a transition in these times much easier than if that hadn't happened. So I'm just going to give a shout out to all of the competent folks, highly competent folks who've worked in our district, past and present, who've helped us get to this point where we are today. So having said that, we were tasked with developing a continuous learning plan that really had three things in mind, which is business as usual for us. Keep students at the center, design learning for equity and access, and assess student learning. And when we talk about keeping students at the center, what we're talking about is making sure that we're planning for student learning, which is looking at their strengths, their interests, and the needs of each individual student and developing our plans around what those are. So using Maslow's hierarchy, talking about food service, thank you, Toby, for mentioning that. In this last week, we delivered 2,534 student meals, 878 adult meals. That's breakfast and lunch. So if you want to count, you can cut those numbers in half. That'll give you the numbers of actual people receiving those meals. But in addition, we send out food pantry bags on the runs, and we can pick up food pantry at the high school. So if you know of folks, encourage them to take part in those services. and we anticipate it's growing each week. We only expect that to continue as we get further down the road. Same thing with technology access. Prior to our buildings being closed, we had loaned out 60 Chromebooks to families for the school year. Since the closure, we've loaned out an additional 190 Chromebooks. John has also managed to deploy or loan out 4 hotspots to teachers and 7 hotspots to families, and that's as of today. We had to be a little bit patient because there was a big demand when all the schools started closing down around the country, but he's been able to secure those and get those allocated where they need to go. And then just a quick reminder, if you need access to Wi-Fi, any of our school parking lots closer to the buildings would give you free Wi-Fi, and they also have a spot at the Village Green uptown that John's been working with community on. So lots of infrastructure in place. And then as you recall, this is only our 24th or 25th day of instruction outside when school is closed. I took out the spring break, and I'm not sure whether to count Friday before spring break or not. I hear it was an official holiday. So, you know, it's amazing where we are given all of that. And we went from invitational learning, we got up and running right away. We made a decision to move towards Google Classroom as our learning management system. That put an extra strain on our tech folks for sure. They had to create student accounts for all of our kindergarten through 2nd grade students so they could access the technologies. And our staff got together right away and started developing their plans. So we were ready to go on the Monday after spring break. The document that you have in front of you right now, this graphic came from some of the early guidance that we received from OSPI. Sort of gives you a nice overview of kind of how the plan is supposed to flow. Jody, if you scroll to the our plan, which is on page 2, it starts here. There are some links that you can take a look at if you notice where the school names, and then there's a virtual master schedule. But the purpose of this document really was to help us in our planning and thinking about how to go about delivering instruction. And what I really want to emphasize tonight is that Tier 1 is sort of the terminology we use in education just to mean general classroom teaching. And that's all students. Every student is in Tier 1. And then the areas, the rows that are below that, kind of start getting into the different supports we have for students. So what we call Tier 2, which might be like a reading support group or a math support group, and then on through special education, English language learners, and our highly capable program and our advanced placement program. So what I've done is I've outlined for each school building and for our alternative learning program. First, to say on alternative learning program, they were able to pretty much continue their program as it is all the time, meaning that they were able to take their weekly meetings and shift to a virtual meeting. They have individual learning plans for each of their students that they work on with families and students. So they were able to pretty much pick up as business as usual, with the exception of they had to do some shifting with their tutoring. They've got that set up as a remote operation now. And their enrichment program, they're only able to offer, I believe, 2 of the activities for their students right now, also remotely, with the hopes of, I think they were looking to try and add back at least 1 more of those enrichment activities. So with the buildings, what you'll see is that generally what's happening is they've developed a schedule at each building. Jody, maybe you can pull up the sample from, I don't know, Chautauqua. It's a link at the top of the document. But anyways, what we have is that most of the teachers are meeting at least once, if not twice a week with their classes virtually. And so this is happening through Google Meets, through their Google Classrooms. Additionally, or if they're, it's some combination of a classroom meeting and office hours, for example, at the secondary level. So students can log in through their Google Classroom and meet with their teacher and have conversation and check in with their teachers. Additionally, if students do have some other portion like a 504 or an IEP plan, or they are a student receiving English language services, we have additional support staff who are reaching out with them and working with classroom teachers to make sure that they have access to their materials and content. So if you look at this schedule here for CES, we didn't put the teacher names in here, but generally speaking, they set up a schedule where teachers, they assigned kindergarten, first grade to the 9 a.m. hour and 1 p.m. hour on Monday. And so each teacher in those grade bands signed up for a particular block of time. Some of them signed up for 2. So that's what this schedule is showing. You'll see other things on here, like areas where they've left open the possibility of running staff professional development. That's happening in each school building as well. Each building is meeting at least once weekly virtually. So you'll see that built in here. And of course, with Chautauqua, you have specialist teachers as well. So you'll see on their schedule here. Jody, why don't you pull up the McMurray one just so you can get a sample of secondary.
Stephanie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What does the specialist at Chautauqua, what is that looking like now? Is that, yeah, how is that working?
So it's, this is my understanding, and Rebecca can probably chime in, but they are working on putting together a lesson a week. So if it's music, Erin puts together a video lesson. So much like the classroom teachers, an opportunity to check in with the students, present their lesson, give them some ideas on what to do. Or Tara Brenna with art projects. I saw a video where she was encouraging them to continue sending photos of their artwork. And so it's basically like classroom teachers. They're having an opportunity to check in. I'm not sure how they divided the grade bands.
Yeah.
I think they divided like primary, intermediate, so a K through 2 and a 3 through 5, but I don't know that for sure.
That's what I was just wondering.
I believe that's what I saw.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
it's a large group.
Yeah, it is a huge group, right? It's not like the second grade teacher who has 20
Right.
kids. They have
Right.
every.
Yeah. And what they did at the elementary is that in grade level teams, each teacher took on a content area. And so, for example, like on 5th grade team, you have one teacher who prepares the math lesson that everybody then shares in. It helps with the planning and preparation to have them focus on a single content area. So reading, one teacher does the reading lesson. So that's how they kind of broke up the workload there. So I don't, were you able to pull up that?
Sorry, Rebecca, if you have any questions directly, I'm here, but Stephanie's doing a great job.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, just pull up the McMurray Virtual Master Schedule. Did you get that, Jody? This one just gives you a little bit more detail on which teacher's doing what. So you'll see office hour or you'll see their class. And so this is the schedule for middle school. This has all the different grade levels. Each one of those colors represents a different grade band. I think it's safe to say in the very first week, last week, it was a little bumpy for some of our staff. For the folks who are already using Google Classroom, this was a much smoother transition, or for people who have that access to connectivity, it was a little bit smoother transition for them. But this week has been much better, much smoother in terms of folks being able to show up and run their sessions and be available. We've, when I checked in with principals today, we are running about 80 to 85% of engagement with our students, which is really very good. That varies a little bit, like some are just attending the class sessions and haven't necessarily turned any work in yet, but we're feeling pretty good about that level of participation. And then we are still, of course, working on the students who have not been able to access for one reason or another. We're down to pretty small numbers in each building of no contact. And we have teams of people, different folks reaching out to try and track down those families that we've not had as much success with. But yeah, we're running basically 80 to 85% is what we think in terms of engagement. We have tracking sheets. We know who hasn't been engaged, and we are working to engage them. Counselors are holding office hours. I know administrators have run some meetings with their families and students. So we're working to engage in lots of different ways. If we are not seeing the online access, we're reaching out by telephone. We're working with our partner agencies and folks to help us communicate and get people hooked up with resources.
So
That's a great number.
Go ahead, Zabet.
I was just going to say that that's a great number, 80 to 85%, because it sounds like the national average is about 60. So way to go, Bash on students and parents. Thank
So
you,
does
Chip.
that mean that like a single point of contact would mean that student is engaged or has been engaged? Or is that?
Yeah, it varies. They're tracking this sort of weekly, and so staff are reporting whether they're seeing them in their Google Meets or if they're getting any work from them. So there may be a small portion that have not had that many points of contact, but the good news is we know who they are, and we are working to engage them and get them. If it's a matter of barrier of resources, we're trying to get resources. Basically just doing as much outreach as we can, heading from every angle and using all of the available staffing to do that. Our teachers, I know elementary, many of the teachers have actually made phone calls home to each one of their students. Same thing at secondary, maybe not every family, but they've been reaching out one-to-one to work on engagement.
That's great.
Any other questions on the overall plan? Like I said, I think I mentioned last time I happened to be at the board meeting, I was saying we are very fortunate. We have a lot of pieces, really good pieces in place already. And our staff have been amazing in the way that they've responded to support one another. It's really allowed people to shine in different ways. I think some staff members were mentioning to me that it's been enjoyable to see certain students who maybe are more quiet in the classroom are really active online. So it's giving some students a different opportunity to engage in ways that they wouldn't otherwise.
Silver lining, silver lining.
It looks like she just found Danny's schedule as well, so.
Yeah, so I mean, these are all linked up. If you use your school district accounts, you'll be able to see them. I don't know that the general public has access to all of these just yet. I'm not sure they're set up that way. Some of the documents, the district level plan is not nearly as detailed. If you go to each building link as school board members, you might want to just go and you can get much more detail on what their plan is for their outreach and who's doing what. So the district kind of gives you that global view, district-wide. But if you actually dive into the school plans, you'll get a lot more detail.
I think as parents, we were emailed links to this for the buildings in which our students go.
Yeah, I think probably the building schedules, maybe not the Chautauqua one, because I built that to look more like the middle school and high school one for you, using Chautauqua's notes, and then Rebecca ran through today and just kind of cleaned things up. They actually have a more detailed one, and I'm not sure if they've sent that out to families yet, because in elementary it's a little different, not dealing with 6 or more teachers.
Well, it's really remarkable that all of
Yeah,
this
so
organized.
a lot of good work by all of our staff and great work by our students and families, and just encourage you to continue reaching out to staff, both teachers and counselors, if you're having any troubles. Direct them our way and we will get them set up and support them best we can.
Stephanie, can I ask another question?
Sure.
What's on your horizon still or next? What?
Well, that's a big question.
Great question, I can't wait to hear.
We're as always, any plan that we put in place is constantly being tweaked, right? So as we're implementing and we're adjusting, we started with this. I know there are some teachers who are just chomping at the bit to do more. We're trying to get everyone acclimated to this environment. And so you could see maybe some more sessions as we move down, or might not. We have to adjust to the needs, what we're learning as we go through this process, and what feedback we're getting from students and families. And we still need to obviously tackle where we're going to land with the grades. I'm in the mindset that that's not a huge problem for us to solve. And interestingly enough, a lot of the work that we've been doing on standards-based grading for the last several years, again, these things that we've been working on for many years are really actually beneficial in this time, because it helps us identify what our priority standards are. So we're already working from a shorter list of priority standards to begin with, and now we can focus on the ones that we need to really zero in on here for these last 8 weeks of instruction.
Could I add to that, Stephanie?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, the most recent guidance from OSBI is that they're even contemplating asking the state to start the school year in a standards-based grading posture, the entire state. And Chris Reckdahl has really asked all high schools to approach this next 8 weeks of learning as a standards-based grading and standards-based learning experience for families and for students. And so we're just really well positioned, having already committed to making the transition to standards-based grading to take advantage of that this spring. And we'll be sharing more about that, how well positioned we are with families here this next week as we roll out our grading approach.
Stephanie, I have maybe a general comment that's germane to this topic. I've seen just a superb amount of innovation as teachers have tried to adjust to this new pattern. And some teachers are, at the end of the week, are asking the students for feedback. What's working well, what's not working well? How much time did this actually take you at home? Because they're trying to target, a certain range of time for each subject. And elucidating that feedback from the students, that was great. And then just as a general comment, families are also confused and struggling as parents to try to support their kids. And I think the most appropriate thing is if families have questions or concerns, that they reach out to the teacher first. And then, if they're not getting what they need, then they go to the principal, and following that process, going directly to Facebook tends to really not be very productive. So it's another call out that we do have. We do have the same process of communication and points of escalation that work, and that is the best way for people to respond and to gather that feedback in an appropriate way. So it's just sort of a shout out to how important that is to retain that process.
Yeah, and be easy on yourself, right? As parent, I'm juggling that right now with work and my son, and it was overwhelming at first to sort out, to take the time, and to be able to give grace. But teachers are in the same situation. If there's something that's not working well, they're going to be flexible as students are learning the process and procedures. So giving space to have some flexibility in the schedule and working with your student and letting them help you map out their plan. They're learning some great skills, reading for detail, particularly if they're in the secondary. You really do need to pay attention to what's being posted, whether it's an email or online. So they're learning some new skills that are really valuable to have, as probably all of us who are guilty of maybe not always reading our emails as closely as we should. But yes, you're absolutely right. Any questions, reach out to a teacher first. If for some reason you're still feeling frustrated, then you would go to the building administrator and work from there. But hopefully the teacher is going to be able to address the concerns pretty readily.
Thank you so much, Steph.
Anything else?
A great explanation.
Yeah, thanks for your
And,
time.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for all your work.
And thanks, principals, for being available
Yep.
tonight too. And have a good night if you're going to log off.
Thank you.
An
Thanks, Al.
unusual high level of collaboration across the buildings, which is really cool. I mean, this is happening in such a condensed amount of time. It's mind-boggling, but well done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks, all. Good night.
Yeah.
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Good night. Yeah.
Good night, Greg. Thank you. See you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right. So with that, we're going to turn to Matt Sullivan, and he's going to update us on
The monthly
financial
financials.
report. Monthly financials. is what we call that.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Provided to you is our normal monthly financials. In this case, we're looking at the, we call our financial dashboard. This is through the end of March. And I would like to direct your attention, of course, the bottom right corner is enrollment. As mentioned at last month's meeting, we did not, track enrollment this month for obvious reasons. We didn't have students in seats. And so what happened was OSPI in turn then used what they call the adjustment rate, which refers to the historical trend of enrollment changes in the last few months of the previous school year. And of course, right below this school year is last school year's, which is quite handy because we actually gained enrollment because of their adjustment rate. Overall, it was just an addition of about 0.74, but we still gained enrollment because last year we ticked up in enrollment towards the end of that year. So that was a bit of a silver lining, if you will. As Zabet mentioned, there's one right there. Financially, through the end of March, about 58.3% of the fiscal year. Expenditures were at 57%, and revenues were at 55.5%. And as you know, as I know, revenues are always lower this time of the year because in April, as our local taxes, we receive those. That said, with the pandemic on, we are assured by King County that those local taxes will be into us wholly, hopefully by June. And as the end of the month rolls around, we'll track that closely. I know, Bob, you asked at the last meeting regarding how we're tracking the COVID-19. We are tracking that as required now by OSPI, and we should have something to you by the end of May. As you know, we close schools mid-March, and so March doesn't give us a full picture. It actually looks quite normal in these financials through the end of March. And so April will be a good kind of lens on how we are doing financially in regard to the pandemic.
All right. Thank you for that, Matt.
You're welcome.
And so now we're going to turn to budget planning also from Matt.
Great. A couple things. The F203 did roll out early, which was great. Of course, as you know, the F203 is the online tool that OSPI provides to all districts in the state to estimate our revenues and in turn, of course, expenditures for the coming year. That's out. We are working on that currently, myself, Kay Adams, and of course, Amy Cicera. And we hope to, early next week, kind of have a draft budget in place, but we'll see how things go here in the next few days. So on to what, as you know, starting in January, I provide to you as many pieces and parts of the budget document that I can. And hopefully when you receive the full document by the end of May, if not early June, you'll have seen almost every single page of the budget document. This page in particular is page number 17, and this is our student fees for the 2021 school year. As we had those initial meetings, January, February, with all of our divisions and departments, specifically the schools in this case, but also CTA, CTE, food service, and then theater and co-curricular sports. We walk through all the fees, and being mindful, I think it was about 5 years ago, the board really took a keen eye in regarding to mitigating and or reducing fees. And so as you notice, the blue is 2021. You will see little to no increase in fees, as we always try to do that, aside from those fees that are, we call them commodities and food service or consumables. So if you look at McMurray with the sport fee per year, the 125, has not been increased in many, many years, but simply due to the fact with league fees, with ref fees increasing, and transportation costs, there was the need to increase that fee. And then there are some slight fees over in food service to account for commodities, the cost and increase in foods. And I'll let you debate, discuss as you see fit.
So, Matt, I have a question about the fees related to CTE.
Right.
Because there's different funding sources for CTE, are we able to use that funding to offset some of these fees?
We would like to, and that question I did pose, very good, to Gus, who's over CTE. These are consumables in particular. I look at jewelry and of course the silver that they use specifically. And he stated that they do need these fees to cover those costs. We're going to look deeper into your question to see if we can offset those costs via CTE. I don't know if we can or cannot, but we will check that.
Thanks.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
I'm just who's paying the, can you give me, I've kind of lost track about who's using the VHS theater. Who primarily uses it these days?
It can be anywhere from concerts, but Drama Doc in particular, Vashon Dance Academy also, but there's numerous other arts groups on the island that do use that.
Okay. It's a good price.
It is. This covers the costs of, this is John in the tech world, the computers that they use, the audio, music systems, etc.
Anybody else want to chime in on that? Okay.
I'll just say that a number of years ago, we did work really hard to reduce the fees, and
Correct.
also understand that the economics have changed a little bit. My sense is that, you know, the changes that you present here are reasonable, and we're still, I assume, operating in the idea that if there's a student who wants to take a class or do something, and they're financially burdened, that, you know, we'll make whatever accommodations we can to support them.
Yes, we do, and the schools definitely do that. Mind you, as we go through this process and met with numerous times with staff, they're very well aware that they, like you, want to mitigate fees as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Welcome.
All right. So now we come to a decision item, Resolution 780, and Slade is going to present that to us.
Sure. Let me pull it up myself. If you remember, we've been discussing the budget planning calendar pretty much every board meeting, kind of updating the board where we are with our next year's projections of revenues and expenditures. And I'll just remind the board kind of again, if you want to, you can always go back and reference my letter, but we have several factors next year that are going to be impacting our programming for next year. I'll just cover some of them right now. We have received indications that our special programs might be decreasing due to our number of students who qualify for free and reduced. So we might see some reductions there. We're seeing an enrollment projection of 1440 for next year, which will be 10 FTE down from this year. We're going to be providing more curriculum supports in the budget, moving basically supports that have been typically provided by Vashon Schools Foundation, moving them back into the general budget, which is really where they should be. In the past, we have budgeted anywhere around $15,000 to $25,000 for curriculum, and that's just really not sustainable long term. And I would like not to have the burden of fundraising, which has been kind of unstable. I'd rather have a budget item so that we can have some predictability around curriculum for our teachers. And so we're moving more funds from the general budget into curriculum supports. We also had an unexpected risk pool increase, about $50,000 over last year's. And once again, we are seeing a fund balance that has come under, kind of, it's been pointed out by the Government Finance Officers Association that our fund balance has been too low over the last several years. And right now, through their formulas, they're saying our fund balance covers approximately 19 days of operational costs, and they're recommending 60 days. And so this is the budget climate that we were already engaged in before COVID. And then, as you know, we've been hearing projections of lower state revenues, due to COVID and property taxes being collected. We've heard of government allocations coming through the CARES Act and through more legislation being passed at the government level and how that's coming down to the state. But as of Monday, they're still unclear in terms of how that money is going to be distributed. There's some indication that there's going to be some significant monies, $200 and something million that are going to go to title schools or title districts, but we are not one of those districts because of the low number of students that we have qualified for free and reduced lunch. So all that being said, there is just a high level of uncertainty. But like I said before, right now we have a really focused approach working with our VEA and VESP folks. I'm in really continuous contact with them. We have a budget advisory board. I've been meeting, just to let you know, with our principals, taking deep looks at our staffing, knowing that we're going to have fewer students. And if we have fewer students, it does translate to fewer staffing around some of those programs. And so I agree with probably 100% of the board in terms of supporting our staff and really in awe of what we've been doing. But we have to be conservative moving forward so that we find ourselves, right now, Matt said that he has the F203 in hand. And so hopefully early next week, we'll have a better analysis of that. And so the meetings that I've been having with principals and the meetings that I've been having with Matt, Amy, and with Catherine and with Stephanie, those meetings will translate into more meetings next week, but stronger information because Matt and Kay will have worked through the data along with Amy and staffing models for next year. All that being said, we don't know who's going to show up and what school is going to look like in September. And so we have to be cautious around our planning for next year. So at this point in time, if there's more discussion you have, we can have that, but I would recommend taking action on and approving Resolution 780.
All right, then any comments on that before we take a vote?
I'm just, Slade and I had a conversation yesterday about, I'm wanting to be cautious and sort of keeping our options open. Could you talk a little bit, Slade, about how you arrived at 3.5? And I learned a fair amount in our conversation. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Really what it is that the principals take a deeper look at their programs and they take a look at class sizes and they model out. And so Danny and Greg have both done their master schedules and trying to, again, take into account who's going to go to running start, what our class size is going to be at, what at what levels. Right now, it does. We are indicating that we have attrition that would, that may or may not come up to 3.5. And so again, that's still information that's being developed. But we believe that with the 3.5 and the up to 60 hours of classified time, that we would be able to mitigate the impacts, not just of lower enrollment, but of the curriculum supports, the unfortunate increase of our risk pool, and the potential impacts from lower federal program support. And so there really isn't a kind of a number that we're trying to, I guess, to hit, because there's a lot of moving targets in this. But we felt that we could, that this would be, as I remember in the budget advisory board, what Danny talked about, living comfortably within our budget and not having to make any different moves, early next year. And again, hoping that we have 1,440 students show up. We don't know what kind of appetite families are going to. So far, we're really shining, and we haven't seen any real decrease in student enrollment. I think maybe one or two families looked to different other opportunities to enroll their students in, but we still have most of our students here. I would like to keep them. I think the work that we're doing demonstrates the quality that we can provide, and that we've been kind of hearing about tonight with Stephanie and the principals. So, but this is what we need to, in terms of trying to fine tune the dials. I know we discussed moving that to 4.0, and I've had even more discussion today, and I believe that 3.5 is the right number. Again, I'm not sure that we're going to need all 3.5 to put us in position to be able to respond to any more budget shortfalls, but I think we're doing the best we can with the information that we have right now.
You don't think, I was just wondering, West Seattle Bridge and COVID are going to have any impact on, or COVID are going to have any impact on off-island enrollment?
Can you repeat that, Bob? Sorry, you were a little
The West
further
Seattle
away.
Bridge, I know, is causing all of my coworkers in West Seattle are having heart attacks because there is going to be no West Seattle bridges for use. You don't expect either of those to affect our off-island enrollment?
I don't. Most of our students come in those kind of neighborhoods that are closer to California Street and the ferry. If anything, maybe if there's, I don't know where the private schools or the other kind of schools where if parents were to be sending their students to a school where they needed the bridge, they may look to the ferry instead of the bridge.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if we could actually.
But I don't. That's information I have no idea where what those schools are and if we may even benefit. Again, I'm hoping that our off-island enrollment, there is some indication that we might have more off-island enrollment happening at the high school right now. That's in addition to what we may have seen in the past years. So I'm hoping that the outreach that we've been doing, especially over this last year, having principals and myself kind of go to CMP and I think some families are very frustrated with Seattle public schools, and so they may be enrolling their ninth graders into our schools because of that. So
I think that experiences families may be having right now will potentially increase that gap, the satisfaction gap. When is your next Cook For Your Thoughts in West Seattle, or do you do a Zoom with those?
Right, we did a Zoom with them. That feels like a year ago now. It was probably a couple of weeks.
Yeah. But Bob's question around the West Seattle Bridge is interesting, and that's probably newer than when you did the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, and it was interesting with the Zoom. We made it for all commuter families, so it wasn't
right.
We didn't need to be we didn't need to be in something up for that. So
yeah. Well, it couldn't hurt to let know that we're an option.
Right, we're open for business. So, and we have right now we are seeing. I'll just let you know we are only seeing 45 students that are currently registered and enrolled for kindergarten, and that means we have 3 sections. And so we would like to run 4 sections, but right now we can't post a kindergarten position that we would like to have posted. There are going to be other opportunities at the elementary building, where we'll have postings, but kindergarten isn't one of them right now. But if that number goes, typically Rebecca was telling me that we have 55, scheduled. And so over, between now and kind of the end of the year and over the summer, they get, another 15 or 20. And that usually puts us in that 65 to 70 mark. And so, but right now we're low, and I'm still we still anticipate the students are going to come. We think that the low turnout is just because of COVID and people focusing on other things other than enrolling their kindergartner, 5 months away from now, or 4 months away from now. So, but that's kind of when we look at some of the FTE, that would be, that might be part of that 3.5 that we're just not hiring right now. But again, if we have students, anytime we have more students, we're gonna hire staff to meet the needs of those students. And so, the philosophy is that those students will bring in the revenue, and then we can appropriate the expenditures. So.
All right. And unless there's any more discussion, do I have a motion to go ahead and pass resolution 780?
Move.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that was everybody. So that is resolved. And that brings us to our next item, which is 2021 Superintendent Contract Addendum, which is the extension of Slade's contract. Present.
Yeah, I just let you know I'm very thankful again to have been able to serve the district for 2 years, and I'm very also thankful for the feedback and that I received in my overall evaluation for the year. I've not only enjoyed being in a position where I can try to help as many students and staff and be in true service to our mission, but I've also just enjoyed the relationships that I've been able to develop with our staff and with the board as well. And so you've had a chance to review the proposed addendum to the contract, and certainly if you have any other questions or comments around it, I'm here to answer them, or if you have more discussion amongst yourselves, that's fine as well. So.
All right, and do we have any further comment or discussion? Looks like a no. So in that case, do I have a motion to go ahead and pass this addendum?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that looks like that's everyone again. So that has passed. Thank you for all your work and leadership, Slade.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the consent agenda. And do we have a motion to pass that?
Yeah, I move we approve in bulk the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Just a quick comment. As you saw, there is Barbara Jensen's retirement there, and
That's so sad.
yes, so we will be having some type of special recognition for Barb, and we don't know what that's going to look like yet. It's all still in process and being developed, but I just want to give a big shout out to her. She is an amazing person and makes great contributions, great teammate for that office staff and for Greg as well. So
she's sort of like, I feel like she's the spoke of McMurray. I don't know what's going to happen when she's not in there.
Right.
It's so great to our family. Really
Oh,
appreciate it.
God.
Yeah,
No.
the office will look different. So, but she deserves a great retirement, and I wish her well. And last year we gave options of either some kind of I believe a treat or a kind of a paperweight of some. It was either an apple or a globe, so that they could be recognized. And we'll figure this out. Barb, don't worry. We're gonna throw a party.
Yeah. And thanks to Kristen Wahanek for all her help for the last couple of years too.
Yeah.
She did.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Hey, Slade, I had a question about that contract that was in there. It looked like some kind of technology contract. Could you?
Let me take a look at
For
it.
like wireless services at McMurray.
I can pipe in here, Slade.
Great.
This is our E-rate through USAC, which is the federal government. They provide, in one case, we have a wireless contract and some more hardware that John Stanton and the tech crew purchase at a discounted rate, in this case, 40% to our district. And this is obviously paid for through our cap tech levy. So
Great. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
it's a pretty in-depth process to work through E-rate, and John was having to do the application and grant all at the same time while he was trying to do everything else. So
it's extensive, the paperwork.
yes, so real kudos to John Stanton.
Yeah. Shout out to John then.
Yeah, right. We're gonna throw a party for him too.
We do need to vote on the
Yes. So
approving this.
if there's no
Yes.
more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that was unanimous.
Yeah.
All right. So that's great. Any new business?
I have it's a question for the rest of y'all. A desire, I feel like I have no understanding of what's happened to our budget in the wake of COVID. Up, down, sideways. And I'm wondering, is it premature, or can we commit at some time to get a look at what the change has done to our budget that was passed long before this was even anyone's right?
Yeah,
I think Matt was talking about a date in May, and maybe if we want to try to put a bookmark in that second board meeting, we could do maybe some type of study session or work session around that, either in advance or after the board meeting. Would that be something that this board would want to do, or?
I'm not looking for a lot of I'm not looking for a lot of detail. I just have no sense, Has transportation gone up or down? I expect it's gone down. Food service, other, big ticket items.
Well, we could even just bookmark a discussion.
Yeah. I'm talking 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know it's going to take longer than that.
Not because of me. I'm roasted.
Okay. I made a note. Thank you, Bob.
All right. And I guess with that, we're adjourned for our regular meeting. And we do have an executive session afterwards. Is that correct?
No,
Okay.
right. We're just adjourning, and
Okay.
I'm going to provide some notes to the board in a separate email. Just
Okay.
more information.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Well, with that, we're closed. Thanks for coming or viewing or streaming us, whatever happened. And the video will be up, I think, tomorrow. If anyone wants to replay it, you can get to see all of it because of the technical issue.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay. Bye.